next, to continue our discussion about the latest in former President Donald Trump's legal saga, we're joined by Mike Leon, Director of Policy and Strategy for the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of the Can We Please Talk news commentary podcast. Good to have you with us, Mike.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you live in person.
Exactly. Right.
Another big day for Trump yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
On top of the immunity case decision, he was banned from the ballot in Illinois. His request for this $100 million bond was denied. Talk about the overall state of Trump's legal saga and how it's affecting him politically right now.
You know, you and I were talking about this a few weeks ago with the Georgia stuff and the way voters were looking at all of this. Look, it's so much for voters to process, but for him personally right now, I've maintained this position after speaking with one of his former attorneys and talking to other legal experts about this. What Illinois is doing, what Colorado's doing, it shouldn't be done. Like, we shouldn't be taking people off the ballots. We should be letting folks decide it at the ballot box. That aside, the civil stuff is starting to impact him financially. So that's why we're seeing him venture into other forays, like the sneakers, trying to make some other means, because he mentioned yesterday in the New York court that he could not afford it. Or at least his lawyers testified to that. This is starting to impact him financially. It's not impacting him politically. Nikki Haley is way behind. She's probably going to lose the majority of the states on Super Tuesday. I'd be shocked, maybe Virginia, she wins something like that. So for Republican primary voters right now, it's not affecting them. He's going to be the nominee. We're going to see what this will affect in the cash flow in terms of where they start messaging to independents and moderates once they get to the general and the conventions.
And he's still getting out politically in terms of campaign moves. He's down at the border today, and so is President Biden. Yep. Both there, yet not talking to each other. The border is one of the biggest concerns on voters' minds. What do we expect to come from today's visit?
Oh, nothing. I mean, come on. I mean, they always do this, and the biggest issue I have with it is we all agree that it's an issue, right? As somebody whose family has ventured, over the border once upon a time. Like, we all agree that this is an issue, and it's not coming from us three, it's coming from Customs Border Patrol, it's coming from the border agents down there, and so they want DC to do something about it. So I think for the two of them right now, it's, long tail effect in the content game. Create this, say we went down there, we can talk to folks down there, we're gonna try to do something. But as we talked about last week, it's being held up by House Republicans because we had something, at least in principle, between a Democrat and a Republican in bipartisan compromise with Senator Langford and Senator Murphy and Kirsten Sinema chiming in. So we had something that could have, maybe potentially would have passed in the Senate. We don't know if it would have passed in the House. I don't expect anything to come out of this, but this is the number one issue that people in exit polling have said in Iowa and in a little bit in New Hampshire. I think it was second in New Hampshire. But this is an issue to folks because they're seeing it play out. It's affecting communities.
Now, Mike, the organization you're with, the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, you're going to host a debate tonight. Talk about the mission of this organization and the purpose of the debate tonight.
Yeah, so more choices, more voices. That's really the goal of this. It's everybody's been invited to these debates that they've had. They've had a Democratic debate back in January. Tonight is another debate where Joe Stein will be there for the Green Party. We've invited Cornel West, RFK Jr. It's 60% of Americans have said they don't want to see this potential rematch in sample polling, right, between the former president and President Biden. Yep. So if they don't want to see that, we need to know who are the other choices. And it's not necessarily like third party or independent candidates like I was telling you guys. It is more about getting folks on the platform to be able to debate the issues so we can talk about the border and see other people's solutions. Because right now we're seeing two solutions that have, the Trump administration one worked during the COVID. The Biden administration one, there's no actual plan for it. And then Congress is held up because the House Republicans are not passing any type of legislation. So more voices, more choices. That's the goal of the organization and this platform to allow people to be able to find out more about other candidates.
And so what do you expect to come from tonight's debate? What's it going to look like?
Well, I mean, the same thing I do with my show, discourse. Like, we want to add to the discourse. We want to talk about call to actions, solutions to some of these issues. So that way voters, and we've seen this in recent polling, voters are starting to vote based on their policy. They identify with a policy. This candidate identifies with that. I'm going to vote towards that. We've seen different polling and exit polling and some other stuff done across states about how voters are feeling with candidates with respect to one certain policy issue that they identify with. So tonight, range of topics moderated by Christina Tobin, our leader. And we're going to be discussing all of these topics with these candidates because given the exposure, how many of these other candidates have you heard from? How many times have you heard Jill Stein actually speak? And you guys are covering it tonight with the Epoch Times and NTD. So it's perfect that we're giving more of a voice to some of these folks that you may not know about and what their platform is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't really talking about these candidates as much. And at the same time, you have this, disagreement over both Trump and Biden. So I'm sure the public will appreciate that. Can we expect to see a debate between Trump and Biden coming back to this election season if they become the nominees?
Look what happened during COVID, right? One of the debates got canceled. I think President Trump at the time, right, or had COVID or something like that. We didn't know what would happen there. We didn't know if the debates would happen. I think right now, as you've seen Representative Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson, some others on the Democratic side, and funnels into my org, they've complained that President Biden doesn't want to debate or have any discourse, because they feel like the polling data is showing that he won't win in November. Trump didn't participate in any of the primary debates, as we saw. He held competing events sometimes. So now we got to get the two of them to face off with each other. They both say they're eager to do it. Obviously, Trump is big on ratings. We all used to watch The Apprentice, right? You're fired, right? So we all know. And so the ratings part of this, I think, would make for TV. But I also think that the former president has to address the legal issues. He's accusing the current president of weaponizing this DOJ against him. What better way to confront the person you think is doing this against you than in a debate format? And with President Biden, the age factor is becoming an issue with voters. He needs to get out there as much as he can to explain why he's not as old or frail as he appears. And what better way to do that than debate the guy you beat last time?
Right, and President Trump has said that he would debate President Biden immediately if that was on the table. So we'll have to wait and see if that becomes an option. Thank you so much, Mike Leon. Great to speak with you. And the debate will be airing on NTD tonight. So if our viewers want to tune in, as you mentioned, NTD and the Epoch Times.
Yep. Yeah, and Rumble too. Download the Rumble app.
And Rumble.
You can stream it. Yep.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.